Right. It's time. Let's begin. Mr. President, honorable ambassadors and delegates, distinguished guests, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the European Policy Center for this Thought Leadership Forum, which is an exclusive format in which the EPC engages top decision makers in discussions about crucial and complex issues facing Europe. And of course, at this present critical geopolitical juncture, one such issue is related to European defense and security, in complementarity with NATO, of course, an active area of work for the EPC, but also a field in which today's guest of honor is vastly experienced and extremely competent. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce to you His Excellency, the President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel, who will give us his reading about the current geopolitical and security situation, as well as about the role of his country and of the EU, of the European Union in this context. Mr. President, thank you very much for taking the time to stop by the EPC on your visit to Brussels. As per Politico, you already had a very busy day participating in important meetings with the heads of European institutions. So I hope that this event offers a moment of respite for you in which we can exchange in an informal and frank manner on the basis of your opening remarks. I'm sure that our participants are eager to listen to your insights and have prepared questions and comments in order to have a lively talk with you. But first, Mr. President, the floor is yours.
For a very generous introduction.
I'll just, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. So thank you for a generous introduction, and it's a great pleasure to address such a distinguished and knowledgeable audience here in Brussels, which is a political center of Europe, but also a good place for reflection on European project. The state of our continent is quite rightly a matter of urgent debate across Europe today. Just last week, I hosted in Prague a conference on the future of European Union. We titled it Europe as a Task, a phrase that captures Václav Havel's belief that the European project is never complete, but always a work in progress. In more than 3 years since Russia launched its aggressive war against Ukraine, we have come to an understanding how vulnerable some of Europe's greatest achievements are, especially reconciliation, peace, or openness. For some, Europe itself is seen as a provocation, and that is precisely why we need to work harder to protect it. President Trump's unorthodox approach to alliances and partnerships has reminded us of something we should have recognized earlier. Europe cannot rely on others to take care of its security and defense. This is not a responsibility we can outsource. It is ours to assume. Clearly, this is easier said than done. It requires a major shift in thinking and the willingness to leave behind long-held assumptions. Europe has been and still wants to be a peace project. Many hoped that this would make conventional armies unnecessary, or at least far less central than they once were. We believed, wrongly as it turns out, in the transformative power of international cooperation and trade. Europe rightfully aspires to have a voice at the global stage and to be taken seriously. We are not interested in falling into anyone's sphere of influence. We want to be in charge of our own future, defending the international order set on rules, shaping the European security architecture, and standing as a beacon for less fortunate nations. This, among other things, motivates our principled response to Russia's aggression and the continued support for Ukraine. We now see more clearly that we can remain both safe and relevant only if we act from a position of self-confidence and strength. The consensus on how we see threats and the urgency to respond has shifted. But important question remains: how we build real hard power and what political cost we are willing to accept. The aim is not to create an alternative to NATO, but to strengthen its European pillar, not by turning away from the United States, but by ensuring that we are capable of defending our own interests, even without active American support if necessary. It is encouraging to see NATO member states taking concrete steps to increase their defense spending and investments. But the key question is, how do we use these resources to meaningfully strengthen our defense capabilities? I never tire of emphasizing that as part of NATO's European pillar, we must focus on building up strategic enablers such as transport, logistics, satellite-based communications, or intelligence. I believe we should also consider strengthening NATO's operational autonomy in Europe by mirroring key US-held positions within NATO command structure with European personnel, so that Europe-specific operations remain possible even without the active participation of the United States. At the EU level, I strongly support deeper European defense cooperation and welcome the latest initiatives in this area. We have no time to lose. That is why Czechia supports increasing defense spending within the EU through tools such as proposed safe mechanism, the proposed exemption from fiscal rules for defense investments, and a shift in European Investment Bank's approach to defense financing, a change that we have long advocated for. We also welcome ongoing work on proposals to use part of cohesion funds for defense purposes, efforts to mobilize private capital, and the simplification of public procurement procedures. Naturally, we are committed to strengthening the European defense industry, and here as well, the speed is crucial. We will need to be coordinated and swift in responding to evolving military needs. Russia's war in Ukraine is offering hard but valuable lessons. The nature of warfare is changing at an unprecedented pace, and I had an opportunity to learn that firsthand when I recently visited Kyiv and Odessa. We must apply the innovation and insights gained on the battlefield in Ukraine, not least in the area of autonomous systems. To round off my opening remarks, let me say this. If we truly want to be stronger, it is not enough to have well-equipped armies. The true strength of any society lies above all in its people. They are the foundation of our institutions, our identity, and our resilience. That is why we must also invest in strengthening access to credible information, to support critical thinking and media literacy. These are essential pillars of a resilient and confident Europe. The Kremlin is well aware of how crucial it is for its own purposes to undermine our internal cohesion. While it has underperformed on the battlefield, it has intensified its long-term hybrid operations and disinformation campaigns against European democracies. Building trust among ourselves and in our institutions is essential. Interference in Europe's internal affairs and electoral processes is very real, and we must respond with efficiency and clarity. The good news is that we have risen to many of the challenges that we were confronted with since 2022. And the main lesson is a hopeful one. If we remain focused on a unifying purpose, we will prevail. Thank you for your attention.
This on? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for this very important and eloquent speech. As you might know, or our guests at least know, the EPC actually has a dedicated project that has been running for about a year or so now, with the aim of generating practical solutions to rebuild and strengthen European defense capabilities, technological and industrial base, to boost investment in European defense, but also enhance civil resilience and preparedness. And this project is called DefSec EU. And my colleague, Maria Martisiute, who is a policy analyst at the EPC, is actually a member of this project. And Maria focuses on defense, security, and foreign policy issues. And before the EPC, Maria has worked in NATO and the EU. So given her background, if you allow me, Mr. President, I would like to invite Maria to join us on stage and partake in our debate. Welcome, Maria. Before she comes in, I'd like to maybe follow up with a couple of questions based on your input. And you started actually by saying that Europe is a task. Forever work in progress, if I remember correctly your words, and then you often referred to we need to do it, and we have to step up, and we. Who is this we? Because we know that Europe is a collection of member states, and especially when it comes to security and defense. Those remain issues of national competence, where sometimes different capitals are not on the same page. So is there agreement on the task that you see ahead of the EU, or that the EU has on its hands already? And if there isn't, how do we get the member states to agree on the task at hand?
I have to say at the beginning that I like first to learn the lesson myself, and then start talking about something. And that's why I very much welcome that I had an opportunity to work both for NATO and the EU, to learn all the difficulties of these institutions, to get convinced that this is the right way to go. Despite all the difficulties, despite all of the bureaucracies and all of the regulations, I am really sure that we have in Europe no other alternative which would be better for making us safer, more prosperous and stable. And that's why whenever I say we, I mean all of us who believe in European idea. Whenever I got really embarrassed by any problem within the institutions, what turned my emotions back to positive was the overwhelming culture of achieving compromise or consensus. The willingness to finally get to an agreement and to do it together. And that's why I always rejected this perception of us and them. Because whenever we talk in Czech Republic about Europe, European Union or NATO, I always prefer the word we, because we are part of it. It's never those people in Brussels did it for us without us. We do it, and we are then a subject of all those decisions made here. Obviously, many countries have different views how to achieve the goals. That's fine, but wherever I was confronted with the situation that any nation objected with a specific case, I always asked for an alternative. So if you disagree with the way to achieve that goal, which other way do you propose leading to the goal? And anyone who means it seriously with the institution would go that way. If they don't have the answer and simply disagree by principle, that means for me that they don't mean it seriously. And now we are at a point where we will have to be very serious if we want to keep Europe relevant at the global stage, or if we only see it as a source of benefits for my country and disregard any responsibilities or obligations coming out of that membership.
So you are optimistic that we can forge this consensus and compromise as we go forward, especially with United States that seems to want to disengage, and with a union that, as you said, has now to build the capacity to defend itself.
I think our experience is that European Union always works much better under pressure than when everything's fine. And now I believe many of us really feel that this pressure is real. Security pressure from Russia, economic pressure from China, and political economic pressure from the United States. I think most of us realize that we have to stand on our own feet and take responsibility for ourselves. And that's why we should be very straightforward in asking questions to those countries and nations who would present any obstacles on the way to be more integrated, more efficient, more competitive, more capable in defense, faster in decision making. I think these are real questions that we will have to ask very seriously in the coming weeks and months.
But do you think that for an EU that is more competitive and is stronger, and it's a beacon of hope and light, as I think you mentioned in your speech, do you think that it's enough to just be reactive? Because it's true, as you said, that every time we've been under pressure, we've mobilized and we responded. But going forward, do we also need a vision of what we want to achieve and who we want to be? Do we need a plan as opposed to just being, should we be more proactive as opposed to simply being reactive? And is there hope that we can become more proactive?
I believe that there is a very solid foundation we can build on, because even after the pressure from United States, from current administration, that is very transactional, Europe still wants to stay on our own foundations. That means respecting European values, human rights, dignity, and sticking to the principles. I think we obviously need to be more pragmatic in a number of issues, faster in our decision making, but it doesn't mean that we will have to get rid of the foundations, because then it wouldn't be us. And I'm sure that we really can do both. That means to keep all these values that make Europe so attractive, but also to adapt ourselves to new reality. And I believe that the potential in Europe is simply immense, but we are not using it in full. We have to be really more self-confident, because we learned to be dependent politically, militarily, economically on when it comes to resources on Russia, when it comes to political decisions and military power on the United States. I truly believe that Europe has a capacity to stand on its own.
And one last follow-up question before I turn to Maria. Because you mentioned principles and values, and also in your speech you mentioned the people. And of course, we had a very tense electoral weekend in which actually, despite a little bit of sign of relief, still we've seen that the hard right has consolidated its numbers, and we are faced with a situation in which radicalization has become, part of our reality. And something with which national governments have to deal on a regular basis, which then has implications for what national leaders are able to agree on in Brussels. And of course, it also has implications for decisions at home, because we spoke earlier about increasing defense spending. And of course, defense spending is not only at the European level, but it has to happen also on the national level. So how do we deal with this trend in which sometimes democratic principles and values seem to be more and more on the line?
When I look at the developments in different countries, but I will focus on my own, I see a very little part of political spectrum that is truly extreme ideologically. Much bigger part of those who are now opposing and sometimes they're called anti-systemic. They are simply frustrated from the exaggeration of very liberal policies in the past. And I believe that if we spend the time talking to them and listening what are their concerns, they are actually not so extreme. So getting back to a realistic description of problems in which we live, giving some room to those who have quite often a feeling that they are not listened to and they are omitted from public debates. It will reduce kind of extremism in a part of this political spectrum, and with that little part which remains, we'll be able to deal, because they will always be there. But I'd say vast majority of those who are now against, for example, EU, it's because we got used to painting rosy pictures, not talking about problems and not dealing with real issues that were burning to people. And of course, if we don't make Europe attractive for our own population, then how can we keep it alive?
Sure. All right. I'll now allow Maria to come in if she has specific questions to address to you.
Pleasure, thank you, and thank you very much for your time today. I'd like to turn the conversation to NATO and Ukraine, if that's okay with you. Now, since 2014, we have a war raging in Europe. In fact, that's the year when you were elected chairman of NATO's military committee. And since 2022, we are facing full-scale war of aggression in Ukraine. Right after Putin issued an ultimatum demanding that NATO rolls back to its initial frontiers of 1997, which is actually the year that Czech Republic, Poland, and Hungary were invited by NATO to start accession talks. And over those 10 years of war, NATO has consolidated, it has adapted, it has strengthened. But has there really been a fundamental transformation of the alliance in terms of structure, in terms of capabilities, in terms of willpower, in terms of attitudes towards membership of Ukraine? And if we look at NATO's European pillar that you referred to earlier, are we ready in terms of civil military preparation? Can we actually scale the production to the needed levels? Do we have the manpower? And in light of the uncertainty of America's commitment to European security, I wondered, do you think NATO is showing weakness and the lack of strategic response, which might be encouraging Russia's aggression against its members? And what more can be done to stop Putin? Thank you.
That's a very good question. It's for a 1 hour lecture, and then I will try to be shorter. I think NATO went through a really deep adaptation to a new situation. Defense spending, new defense plans, forward presence at the eastern flank, introduction of new technologies and procedures. I think really over these 10 years, NATO has made a significant progress. But if you ask me if NATO is right now ready for serious warfighting, I would say with many restrictions. It's because NATO forces since the end of the Cold War were mostly built as a deterrence force, not as a warfighting force, with some exceptions, obviously. But what we see ongoing in Ukraine is clearly a combination of, I must say, I'll call it classic warfighting that we know from the Second World War, with some elements of highly modern technological warfare, plus elements of hybrid warfare, cyber warfare, information warfare, all of this combined, and with having no real experience with that kind of warfighting, NATO actually cannot be ready for it, because only through real life experience, Ukraine and Russian military grew to an understanding of this new way of warfighting. We are all trying to learn the lessons from the battlefield. What we need to focus much more in NATO, and I will repeat that once more in a NATO summit. It's not just about defense spending. Defense spending is a vehicle. The objective is a real military capability that is ready at a time when I need it. And in my debates with that time Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, when we first introduced this chart with a red line on 2%, and some unfortunate countries were left below, and some fortunate were praised being above, I told him it doesn't say anything. Because if you compare one country spending 1.5% and meeting all the requirements of a responsible member, including modern and trained military, including participation in exercises, operations, including filling their slots in NATO command structure, and then another country spending almost 3% and meeting only half of these capability targets, how can you compare it? And when Donald Trump came to his first term, he praised those that were above and not meeting the standards of a reliable ally. And he was very rude on those who were below and meeting everything. So I would say let's look at real military capabilities, because if we really get into trouble, then the commander on the battlefield will fight the war with soldiers and military hardware, not with the charts on paper. And I think this is a main lesson that we have to learn to be truly combat ready, because we simply cannot exclude the eventuality that we will have to fight the war.
And since you referred indeed to NATO's defense spending, I'd very much like to ask you about the upcoming NATO summit, where indeed defense spending is again going to be very high on the agenda. And I just wondered, you know, we struggled to meet the 2% GDP for defense spending. And now potentially we're going to rise it to 5%, which you just elaborated. You know, it doesn't necessarily reflect the actual capabilities, the number. Given the difficulties in meeting even the 2% target and what it potentially entails, Don't you think that there is a risk that it might create renewed frictions between the US and European allies if we again, establish a very high bar of 5% and not able to really meet it? And what should be that burden sharing between the US and Europe? Thank you.
I will give you a very frank answer. If there is an agreement made under pressure on, let's say, 5%, it will lead most of the nations to accounting exercises. That means they will calculate into it number of infrastructural projects that are supporting defense. They will calculate almost anything, but it will have no real power to describe the capability of our military. I truly believe that we have to turn it from accounting to thorough analysis of how do we meet capability targets that are established within defense planning. In NATO, it works in a way that, if I simplify it, all the nations through their military and civilian intel services provide a threat assessment. That threat assessment is then agreed by all members, and on that threat assessment, NATO planners plan the necessary set of forces and capabilities. This set of forces is then distributed amongst the member states, and they come back with the capability. When we combine it together, that's a collective defense. If we all, or most of us, will approach that we meet our capability targets, in fact, showing real military capability by 50%. It means that our collective defense is only 50% strong. And our opponents, they know it very well. So, all of those exercises with figures have no deterrence effect whatsoever, because Russians know very well what is true military capability of Czech military, of Bundeswehr, or any other army in Europe. So if we turn it and start talking about true capabilities, delivering on time, it will have a tremendous deterrence power, because now Russians know that quite often we are playing with numbers and sometimes even cheating. If we really deliver the capability, it will be a true sign that we mean it seriously, and it will have a deterrent effect much better than declaring 3, 5, 7, or any percent of GDP.
Thousands of ammunition shells to Ukraine at a time when US aid was in question and where Europe was overwhelmed in terms of its production capacity. Drawing on that experience and working with a coalition of 16 member states, what's your military advice to European political leaders now that they try to rebuild, so to say, European defense industrial technological base, prepare EU and Europe for the most extreme military contingencies in war? And can Europe defend itself on its own? Do we have courage to prepare and defend our own? Thank you.
First, we will need courage to take care of ourselves and to make decisions together, not sticking to status quo with national states, national defense industries, and national interests put above everything, because that will make us irrelevant in the future. if we want to stay relevant at the global stage, and I meant that in my introduction, we really need to do much more together. And then it is about the will to implement the decisions that we deem right. At this moment, we are probably still not under such a pressure to understand that we have to do more together, more integrate. For example, defense industry. We have hundreds of companies, smaller, bigger, but none of them is big enough to present sufficient counterweight to, for example, big American companies or Chinese companies. The same goes for research and development. We do have a capacity in Europe to be a truly relevant global player if we are able to overcome this atomization of Europe. And we talk a lot about united Europe, but we are actually disunited in many ways.
Thank you so much for that. I'm very conscious of the time, so I want to give the opportunity also to our participants to come in if they have questions or comments. Okay, we have two hands that went up. I'll collect a few questions and then I'll come back to the president. Okay, yes, since you're
Thank you.
Please briefly introduce yourself.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm a journalist from Georgia, independent media outlet Euroscope. I want to ask you about Georgia. As you know, for that time, as Georgian Dream suspended European integration, more than 5 months, Georgian people defending this European future in the street. Also, we are watching that influence from Russia is growing in Georgia. We see daily how Georgian Dream submitted and adopting the legislation, repressive legislation, young people in the jail, my colleague journalists in the jail. So what's your estimation and what do you think? If Georgia will miss this window of opportunity of Euro integration, where will be Georgia, and is there still chance to not miss this window of opportunity? Your advice. Thank you.
Okay, and we then come to this. Is it okay to collect a few and then you you choose?
Victoria Vlasenko from Deutsche Welle. Mr. President, sir, Ukraine has been invited to the NATO summit in Hague. So what Ukraine should expect from this summit? Any signals, any decision whatsoever? Thank you.
And if I can abuse my position as chair, I'll just add another question because Georgia came up and because you spoke of doing more together. And I wonder if by together you only mean the member states or if you're also thinking about our vicinity, because since the war, at least the rhetoric about enlargement has picked up pace. So what is your stance on further widening of the EU? And also, is further widening and doing more together with or without the vicinity possible if we don't also deepen in European integration?
Okay, let's start with Georgia. I had an opportunity to visit Georgia twice during my tenure as a chairman of NATO Military Committee, and I was truly sorry that the process of integration of Georgia into European institutions was not completed. It started in 2008, creating a great expectation, and it took a long time, which led both in Georgia and Ukraine to some frustration through proposing different interim steps for integration. The willingness of Georgian population to be integrated within NATO and eventually EU at that time, which I remember was really high. most probably the frustration of a lengthy process led to a success of those parties that were against integration. In my view, we in NATO and EU should take a lesson out of it, and I will get through that to the third question, to understand that it may prove very harmful if we create expectation that we are in the end not willing or able to fulfill. And that's why we should be very cautious in working with partners, not to raise expectations too high, but rather working slowly on gradual integration through steps that will eventually result in natural integration, because it will already be almost completed. That's in my view a much more sensible approach. I cannot give you any prediction for Georgia. Most probably it will need some time for Georgian population to clearly understand and articulate their interests and need. And if there is a situation where Georgian population, again by a majority, will be ready for integration, and Europe at the same time will take a lesson, I think the process may start again, but we are not there yet. For Ukraine, I didn't receive any information yet that President Zelensky will be at the summit, because there is still ongoing discussion with the United States about the format. But President Zelensky was invited to all of the summits in the last couple of years. So I believe that he should be there. If for anything else, to inform the allies about the process, because not all of them are informed about the outcomes of different meetings and phone calls. And also to hear from the member states how seriously they mean continuing support to Ukraine. When we talk about the NATO membership, it will be most probably the most critical part of talks with Russia. And from what I learned also from our Ukrainian friends, they consider it as an item for debate on concessions. Even if there is a full agreement to the process, it will take years for it to happen. So I think it might be reasonable at this point not to talk too much about NATO membership, but what is important, not to exclude it. But to leave it open, but rather focus on ceasefire, on peace negotiation, on reconstruction of Ukraine after the war, on membership in the EU, because if these steps are met successfully, then there might be time for talking about NATO membership as well. And one more word on enlargement.
And EU reform, if I can press you a little bit on that.
On
EU reform.
Okay.
Linked or not to enlargement?
Well, I think these two are interlinked. I am convinced that when we take Europe as a task, we cannot leave countries that are willing and wishing to join outside. Especially when it comes to countries that are so under threat, like Moldova, Ukraine, Western Balkan countries, because by leaving them alone, they will only become a prey of other actors. We see how Russia, China, and even some Arab countries are exerting their influence, Turkey, in these countries. Not necessarily all these influences may be harmful, but they are definitely not assisting their integration into the EU. And right now, Albania, Montenegro are on the right track to conclude their accession talks, hopefully 27, 28. But we shouldn't also exclude other countries from integration. In my view, but it's also a position of Czech Republic, that gradual integration being taken step by step makes good sense. And of course, to absorb these new countries, we need reforms. But we need these reforms even without enlargement, because otherwise EU will not be attractive, EU will not be relevant.
Yes. Are there any other questions from our? Okay, we have one more hand that went up. We have time for another short round.
Good afternoon. My name is Markéta Marečková. I work in DG Regio. Dear Mr. President, in your speech, you mentioned potential shift of sources from cohesion policy towards the defense industry. And I would like to ask you, how much realistic do you suppose it is doable or feasible when we are now in the middle, in the half of the programming period, and all the programs are ongoing and committed and with their plans to do? And also, do you think it could be harmful to the cohesion policy? Thank you.
Right. Back.
Mihai Gihaya from the European Policy Center. Thank you, Mr. President, for all your insights today. I just wanted to go back to capabilities that you mentioned a few times earlier. And I was wondering, what are the priority capabilities at this point in Europe, and where would you rank military mobility there, not necessarily as a capability, but as an enabler? Thank you very much.
Maria.
Just upon reflection of what you shared, you talked about the need of financing, need to integrate our industries and think, you know, as together Europe-wide. You talked about indeed capabilities, and you even pointed, which is I think only a few leaders in Europe has mentioned, Europeanizing perhaps the control and command structure of NATO. But you also said that even with that, we are not yet fully ready because we need additional pressure to create urgency for us to take all these steps. Where should that pressure come from? EU-NATO infrastructure is already attacked. We have very sophisticated hybrid threats in EU-NATO territory. We have a war raging at the heart of Europe. What type of pressure do we need? Also considering a few days ago that, and NATO officials confirmed that Russia has started military buildup on the border with Finland. What pressure do we need to really fully wake up? What are we talking about? Thank you.
If we wait until the pressure becomes too high, won't it be too late?
Let me start on cohesion. I'm not so deep in the processes to know exactly the ways how to, in the middle of the cycle, shift some resources from one bucket to another. But I only echo what is a prevailing view within the institution, but also among the leaders, that part of these resources could be moved. It sounds reasonable, but I have deliberately used the word part, not cohesion funds, because we need money in cohesion fund for other crucial needs. We simply cannot move everything from cohesion to defense, because we would create another pressure that would be potentially equally harmful. There are competing priorities for number of resources. If we look at green transition, if we look at cohesion, if we look at defense, they are all competing for the same resources. So the debate will definitely come on table if the contribution to EU budget from member states is sufficient. if we need to deliver more from the nations to cover all these competing priorities. Another question is, have we used all the capacities within the existing system? Because as the report from IMF says, there are hidden capacities within the system that were not unlocked. I mean now a private capital which could be used to cover at least part of these priorities, removing non-tariff barriers within Europe that amount up to tens of percent when translated into tariffs. So there are potentially some ways to explore. But of course, we have to take it in a very comprehensive way to look at the different options and timelines where we can apply these options. But the time really has come to seriously consider all these options and then come up with the one that will cause the least harm. Capabilities and military mobility. When we look at defense planning, at least the part that is public, we can easily identify where are the biggest deficiencies. It's air defense, missile defense, communications, intelligence, strategically, at least for European countries. But it's also modern technologies, especially all autonomous systems that are missing in bigger numbers in most of the militaries. I think all these are now at the table, and on top of it, there are those that are not within the rank of military hardware, but they are all supporting capabilities, especially infrastructure for mobility on all kinds of mobility, logistic support across Europe, also data links among all European countries. I think all these capabilities will be needed to strengthen capabilities for defense across Europe. And what kind of pressure? I sincerely hope that we will not need a war to wake us up. I mean, war against NATO country, because apparently war in the vicinity of NATO is not enough. But I'm a little bit more optimistic because to wake up suddenly someone, you need a shock. But you can also wake up someone slowly by adding inputs. And I think we are in the process of convincing not only politicians, but also populations in Europe that time has come to act, that we simply have no luxury to wait more. And many leaders understand it, and that's why we see a number of decisions that were beyond imagination just a couple of years ago, and now they become reality. It takes time, for me, too much time, but I see things changing. But we really make to urge to make them happen faster.
Well, let's hope that by poking slowly Europe to wake up, it won't wake up in a bad mood. But we have effectively come to the end of our discussion. However, before we part ways, I wanted maybe to ask two short questions. The one is linked to Ukraine. Do you think that the fast track accession of Ukraine is necessary and feasible in the current situation, EU accession, I mean? And talking about getting into action and starting to act together, if you were to tell us one action that the EU needs to take next, what would you focus on more concretely?
For Ukraine, I think there's one good chance how to assist Ukraine in EU accession by coming up with a proper and thorough plan for reconstruction. It can be easily used as a vehicle to meet all the chapters and for accession. In fact, preparing by doing. And right now we have a number of tools, including Ukraine facility and number of different funds. But in my view, they would require a unifying umbrella for bringing all these activities together and coming up with a solid plan that would coordinate it between North America, Europe, and potential other contributing nations, for example, in Asia or Indo-Pacific, that would be willing to contribute, because having such a plan would not only give a sense of stability to Ukraine, because they would clearly see on which capabilities and resources they can rely. It would also give a sense of stability to all people who had to flee Ukraine from the war to come back, because they would see a perspective in their own country. It would also create a condition to cover all necessary areas without unnecessary competition between contributing countries, so that the reconstruction could go very quickly and in an efficient way. I think that might be a really good exercise how to integrate a country and at the same time to rebuild it after this devastating war.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for your openness, your clear and determined answers. Very much appreciated. I also thank our audience for participating. Also, if you are interested in our take and our work on these topics, you will find on your way out publications that have been issued from the DevSec EU project. And please, I would like to now kindly ask you to join me in thanking the President for his very important insights. Thank you.